When people talk about the greatest guitarists of all time, the same names always rise to the top: Hendrix, Clapton, Page, Gilmour. These legends shaped entire generations. But what about the guitarists who slipped through the cracks? The ones whose playing changed songs, genres, and even other guitarists, but whose names barely get mentioned outside of die-hard music circles. Some were quiet studio assassins. Some were innovators in genres that never got mainstream love. Others were simply overshadowed by bigger personalities standing next to them on stage. But every single one of them deserves far more recognition than they ever got. Today, we are counting down 10 of the most underrated guitarists nobody talks about. These are the players who shaped sound in the shadows, who made magic without the headlines, and whose riffs, solos, and tone deserve to be carved into the halls of rock history. Number 10. Elliott Randall. If you have ever heard the song "Reelin' in the Years" by Steely Dan, then you have heard one of the most jaw-dropping guitar solos ever recorded, even if you do not know the name behind it. That solo belongs to Elliott Randall, a session guitarist whose fluid phrasing and effortless tone earned him the admiration of players like Jimmy Page. Randall was not a full-time member of Steely Dan. He was brought in as a session player in the year 1972, nailed the solo in a single take, and walked away having created a piece of guitar history. The solo's mix of bluesy bends, rapid-fire runs, and perfect melodic contour turned a clever pop song into something transcendent. Unlike the guitar heroes plastered on magazine covers, Randall stayed mostly in the studio. He worked with artists like Carly Simon, the Doobie Brothers, and John Lennon, quietly elevating other people's songs while never chasing the spotlight himself. His career is a reminder that some of the most unforgettable guitar moments did not happen on sold-out stages. They happened in recording booths, between the red lights. Elliott Randall may not be a household name, but his fingerprints are all over some of the most timeless tracks of the 70s. Number 9. Peter Green. Before Fleetwood Mac became a pop juggernaut in the late 1970s, it was a hard-hitting British blues band, and at the heart of that sound was guitarist and songwriter Peter Green. Peter Green had a unique ability that set him apart from the flashier players of his time. While many guitarists focused on speed and technical showmanship, Green's playing was soaked in emotion. His phrasing was fluid and vocal-like, almost as if the guitar itself was singing. Songs like Albatross and Black Magic Woman showed a sensitivity and restraint that influenced guitarists for decades after. Eric Clapton famously called Peter Green the only guitarist who ever made him nervous. That is how much respect his peers had for him. Yet, despite this immense talent, Green's story took a tragic turn. Struggles with mental health and a departure from Fleetwood Mac in the early 1970s caused his name to fade from the mainstream conversation. Today, many casual listeners know Fleetwood Mac for their Rumors-era hits, but far fewer recognize that it was Peter Green who laid the foundation for that band's success. His tone, phrasing, and songwriting continue to inspire guitarists who search for something deeper than just fast fingers. Number 8. Bill Nelson. In the world of mid-70s rock, few guitarists were as forward-thinking as Bill Nelson, the driving force behind the band Bebop Deluxe. While many guitarists of the decade were perfecting blues-based rock styles, Nelson was quietly pushing boundaries, blending glam rock, progressive elements, and early hints of what would become new wave. His guitar work was sophisticated but never sterile. On songs like Ships in the Night and Axe Victim, he combined lyrical lead playing with intricate rhythmic ideas and futuristic textures. He had a gift for making the guitar feel both classic and ahead of its time. It's not easy to live this way. Just an hour of free. Bill Nelson was also a prolific songwriter and producer, often prioritizing the band's artistic direction over putting himself in the spotlight. That decision may have kept his name off mainstream guitar hero lists, but it also allowed him to build a unique legacy. His experimental approach paved the way for the atmospheric guitar sounds that would define the late 1970s and early 80s. Players in post-punk and alternative scenes later cited his work as a key influence. even if most casual rock fans have never heard his name. Number 7. John McGeoch.
They must have come to a secret understanding.
In the late 1970s and early 1980s, a new wave of guitar sounds began to emerge from the post-punk and new wave scenes. At the forefront of this shift was John McGeoch, a guitarist whose atmospheric, layered, and often haunting style helped define the sound of bands like Magazine, Susie, and the Banshees, and Public Image Limited. Unlike many of his peers, McGeoch did not rely on blues licks or traditional rock phrasing. Instead, he approached the guitar almost like a painter with a blank canvas, using effects, inventive chord voicings, and creative picking patterns to build soundscapes. His work on songs like Spellbound is a masterclass in how to make a guitar simultaneously rhythmic and melodic, driving the song without ever overwhelming it. McGeoch was admired by fellow musicians, including Johnny Marr and The Edge, who both cited his playing as an influence. Yet, outside of dedicated music circles, his name rarely appears in conversations about great guitarists. Part of this is because McGeoch was never the frontman. He moved between bands, elevating their sound but never putting himself in the spotlight. His guitar work remains some of the most innovative of the era, bridging the gap between punk energy and the textured sophistication that would shape alternative rock for years to come. Number 6. Frank Marino. While names like Hendrix and Clapton were dominating guitar conversations in the early 70s, Frank Marino, the Canadian frontman of Mahogany Rush, was quietly channeling that same explosive energy with his own unique twist. Frank Marino burst onto the scene in the early part of the decade with blistering live performances and a guitar tone that felt both raw and otherworldly. Songs like Dragonfly and The Answer showcased his fiery solos, intricate phrasing, and lightning-fast runs that could rival almost anyone of his era. Despite his talent, Marino never broke into the mainstream consciousness in the way many of his contemporaries did. Some critics unfairly dismissed him as a Hendrix imitator. But in reality, his approach was more technical and often more improvisational, blending blues, hard rock, and psychedelia into something distinct. His live performances became legendary among guitar aficionados. Marino's intensity on stage was matched by an almost spiritual connection to the instrument, often performing extended solos that left audiences stunned. Frank Marino may not be a household name, but among serious guitar players, his work is revered as some of the most electrifying of the 70s. Number 5. McGeoch. When people talk about early hard rock pioneers, names like Tony Iommi, Ritchie Blackmore, and Jimmy Page dominate the conversation. But standing right beside them, often overlooked, is McGeoch, the guitarist and founding member of Uriah Heep. McGeoch helped craft a sound that blended heavy riffs, progressive arrangements, and soaring harmonies long before many other bands were experimenting with that formula. His wah-driven solo on Gypsy, from the band's debut album in the year 1970, is a perfect example of how he combined raw power with fluid phrasing. Throughout the early 70s, Box's guitar work was the backbone of Uriah Heep's sound. Songs like July Morning and Look at Yourself showcased not only his lead playing, but also his ability to create layered, textured rhythm parts that gave the band its signature feel. Despite this, Uriah Heep never achieved the same level of cultural reverence as bands like Led Zeppelin or Deep Purple, and as a result, McGeoch's contributions have often been underestimated. His influence can be heard in countless later hard rock and metal bands, proving that sometimes the innovators are the ones working quietly just outside the spotlight. Number 4. Steve Howe. Progressive rock pushed guitarists to new levels of technical ability and creativity, and few embodied that spirit more than Steve Howe of Yes. Howe joined the band in the year 1970, just as they were on the brink of transforming from a psychedelic rock outfit into one of the most ambitious progressive acts of the decade. Steve Howe's guitar playing was a blend of classical precision, jazz-influenced fluidity, and rock energy. On songs like Yours Is No Disgrace, Starship Trooper, and Roundabout. He seamlessly shifted between delicate acoustic passages, complex chord structures, and blistering electric solos sometimes within the same song. Unlike many guitar heroes of the time, Howe's focus was never on showy displays for their own sake. Every note he played served the composition. His ability to weave his guitar lines into complex arrangements without losing power or clarity is what made him stand out. Yet, despite his immense talent, Steve Howe's name is often left out of mainstream greatest guitarist conversations. This may be because progressive rock itself has always been a bit outside the pop culture spotlight. Among musicians, however, Howe is revered. His approach influenced generations of guitarists who were looking for something beyond blues-based rock, a path that valued technical skill, musicality, and imagination in equal measure. Number 3. T-Bone Burnett. While many great guitarists built their reputations on solos and flashy performances, T-Bone Burnett made his mark through subtlety, craftsmanship, and a deep understanding of American roots music. Emerging in the 1970s, Burnett first gained attention as part of Bob Dylan's Rolling Thunder Revue, where his precise, understated guitar work helped support one of the most ambitious tours of the decade. What makes T-Bone Burnett underrated as a guitarist is not just his tone or technical ability, it's his ability to serve the song with absolute precision. His playing often blends folk, blues, country, and rock into a cohesive whole, using dynamics and texture rather than sheer speed to leave a lasting impact. In his solo work and with his alpha band, Burnett brought a raw, honest guitar sound that cut through the slick production trends that were starting to dominate the late 70s. Later, he became more widely known as a producer for artists like Roy Orbison, Elvis Costello, and Robert Plant. But his playing during this era reveals a musician who had already mastered the art of restraint. T-Bone Burnett is a reminder that great guitar playing is not always about being in the spotlight. Sometimes, it's about creating a foundation so strong that others can shine on top of it. Number 2. Richard Thompson. Few guitarists can seamlessly blend technical brilliance, emotional depth, and storytelling quite like Richard Thompson. Emerging in the late 1960s as a founding member of Fairport Convention, Thompson helped pioneer the British folk rock sound, but his guitar playing truly flourished throughout the 1970s. Thompson's style is unlike anyone else's. He combines intricate fingerpicking techniques with biting electric leads, often within the same song. Tracks like Shoot Out the Lights and The Calvary Cross showcase his ability to weave haunting melodies and fiery solos into narratives that feel both ancient and modern. Unlike many guitarists of his generation, Thompson never chased the trappings of rock stardom. He focused on songwriting and musicianship, which may be one reason he isn't mentioned in the same breath as the flashier guitar heroes of the decade. But among fellow musicians, his name commands enormous respect.
James 80 from robbery. Shotgun blast in his chest.
His live performances are especially revelatory. Armed with just a guitar and his voice, Thompson can fill a room with more power and nuance than entire bands. He remains one of the most quietly influential figures in guitar history, inspiring players across genres, from folk to rock to alternative. Number 1. Roy Buchanan. At the very top of this list is a guitarist who has often been called the guitarist's guitarist. Roy Buchanan was a Telecaster master whose emotional control, dynamic range, and unique tone made him one of the most respected but least celebrated guitarists of the 1970s. Born in Arkansas and raised in California, Buchanan developed a sound that blended country picking, blues phrasing, and razor-sharp bends that could make his guitar almost sound like it was crying. He was never a flashy showman. Instead, he stood nearly motionless on stage, letting the guitar speak entirely for him. Roy Buchanan's recordings from the early 70s, like The Messiah Will Come Again, are breathtaking in their intensity. He used volume swells, harmonic squeals, and perfectly timed bends to create a sound that was entirely his own. Many of his contemporaries were blown away by his ability to make a simple phrase sound monumental. Despite his incredible skill, Roy Buchanan avoided the mainstream spotlight. He turned down offers to join major acts, including the Rolling Stones, preferring to chart his own path. This decision, along with his understated stage presence, meant that he remained a cult figure rather than a household name. But among fellow guitarists, Buchanan was legendary. Jeff Beck dedicated the song "'Cause We've Ended as Lovers" to him. Countless players cite him as a major influence, even if casual listeners might not recognize his name. Roy Buchanan represents everything this list is about: a towering talent whose legacy lives in the hands of the musicians he inspired, rather than in the headlines.